A true hero is not measured by the size of his strength, but by the strength of his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for Disney Royalty Interlude number 4, Hercules, Hercules, and Meg. So Hercules is an odd film. Actually, odd's not the right word. It's a film very in line with the precedent that is set by The Hunchback of Notre Dame, coming into Hercules and then Tarzan. And out of those three, we're going to focus on the former two. And when it comes to Hercules, because of how different it feels from the mainstream line, I think it's a bit easy to sort of think of it as not being worth the Disney royalty lineup. But it's worth an interlude. If for no other reason, then I like to stress some ideas. And I think Hercules is full of a lot of ideas. A lot of ideas that actually are in line with what we're looking for in the Disney royalty line. So when you look at this, I think most people think of how it's, a really child-friendly version of the Labors of Hercules. And long story short, the Labors of Hercules is Hera drives Hercules insane to the point where he murders his children and his wife, who is Megara, and he then must undergo these tasks to redeem himself, which is weird, but whatever. And this also has a couple of little shout-outs to other moments in Greek mythology, but at the end of the day, this is kind of independent of Greek mythology for the most part. This story could have honestly taken place just about anywhere. But, we have a certain amount of characters that help solidify that this is, a Greek myth. But when you look at this as in terms of how it stands up to Disney Renaissance, honestly, this doesn't look like a Disney film. And you don't really notice it until you notice the scale that it is a Disney film. Disney's always been really good at, again, those really grand moments, those great shots to really help you get the scope and magnitude of a scene. But we also have the weird eyes. There's a lot of slapstick here that is a bit reminiscent of Aladdin, but really feels not. But the problem I've always had with Hercules is that it doesn't quite feel like it understands where it wants to go. At the very least, it's trying to juggle too many possible themes. There's Hercules' theme of, wanting to find out where he belongs, which is a bit more in line with, Aladdin and Belle's, goals and desires for what they want in life. With Aladdin wanting to be seen as something more than just a street rat, and Belle wanting this great adventure and finding someone she can talk to. And then we have Hercules wanting to be a hero, and then there's a question of what actually is a hero. Then we have Megara, who has her own totally separate story, but could connect to the hero aspect of Hercules' story. Then we have Hades, who is our great Disney villain, one of the greats, I think. And then we have all these characters trying to come in, and it almost works. Like, the story makes sense. Like, from a progression standpoint, it works. But in the terms of the theme trying to be explored, it always feels like it's a bit short of the mark. But there's still a lot to really like about this film. The muses being, a shout out to the Greek choir for theater. The little shout outs to the Labors of Hercules. Scar has a cameo in this, and he's not the. I'm guessing he's the Nemean line, but the Nemean line doesn't have a scar. This Scar has a scar. Well, this line has a scar, therefore we know it's Scar. And it's not the first time that's happened in Disney. So we have an idea of what's really great about this film. The characters are really strong. Phil is really great. Phil is also another character with his own personal story that isn't quite fully realized because it is again sort of lost the idea of a hero. But let's just dive into this. So we'll start with Megara. Megara is a really complex character. She's a bit too complex for Disney, I think. She's coming into this story having already lived a very complicated life, or very stressful life, and her story, I think, is not just finding love. I think that's sort of the way we sort of water it down, but it's also her restored faith in humanity and in people. Remember, she's working for Hades here, and the reason she's working for Hades is because she made this huge sacrifice to save her boyfriend, and then it didn't pan out because he forgot about her, he just moved on. So we get that Megara sort of comes into this story with a very jaded sense of worldview. She's not taking Hercules serious. It's very understandable that she doesn't. He comes off as someone very sheltered, very very goofy, very not aware of how the world works or how she perceives the world works compared to how he believes the world works. This isn't a new concept. We see it in something like Cats Don't Dance with Sawyer and Danny. And honestly, that's a good comparison for Hercules and Megara, Sawyer and Danny. But where Sawyer's story is very straightforward and doesn't quite pay off at the end in terms of how it interacts with Danny because of how restricted Danny's story is, or the problems with Danny's story, Megara's story is very tied into Hercules'. She is someone who helps, who tries to, understand his weaknesses for Hades. Then she comes to admire him and eventually love him, and then makes this huge sacrifice for him, and then is willing to never see him again, but he chooses her at the end. That's really sweet. That's really great. In a lot of ways, she's also like Lois Lane. She sort of serves as this very humanizing point for Hercules. This understanding of the world and of people, and she sort of anchors him to reality in a lot of ways. Hercules at times doesn't feel like he can open up or be vulnerable with people, but he's able to do that with her to the point where Hades says, okay, he doesn't have a weak point. Physically, you're his weak point. And that's what leads to that story. But over the course of, again, this adventure, Hercules does have the impact on her. And it's not just that he's saving people. She's a bit grossed out, a bit disgusted at how excited he and Phil are at the idea of getting to save some kids in a rumble. Like, oh boy, mayhem, we got this. Like, okay, no. It sort of fuels her idea about, how shallow and petty the world is and how people will betray you at the end of the day. And then she sees him win her over. Megara's story is finding her humanity through the interactions of a demigod. It's very much, again, the Superman Lois story. Coming up to Hercules, Hercules has a problem that Ariel had, in that the animated works do not help his character. And by that I mean, if you look at the animated series, which you should, it's really fun, Hercules knows Hades. Hercules knows he can't trust Hades. And the only reason this one works a bit better than with Ariel is because there's something more at risk here, because Hades does play the Megara card. With Ariel, you have to go with the idea that Ariel is so done with not living her dreams that she's totally willing to trust Ursula, knowing that she really shouldn't. But Hercules comes into the story. He's introduced. We know him as the son of Zeus and Hera, and he should be a god, but he's a demigod, and he's been adopted by these really nice people, more in line again with Superman adopted by the Kents, and he feels like an outcast. He feels like he doesn't belong because he's different. He doesn't look different that much, but he also has this super strength, and he doesn't quite know how to control it, especially at this goofy, awkward stage he's in. So he's very afraid of messing up. He's very afraid of upsetting people and being judged harshly, which we saw when how his not friends mocked him and tried to exclude him from the games. What he wants is, again, as he says in the song I Can Go the Distance, he wants to find a place where he can belong. He has this sort of dream of this far-off place where this warm welcome is waiting for him, and the crowds cheer, and this is where he wants to be. He wants to find a place where he belongs. He sort of has the Naruto story. He wants to get respect. He wants to be treated like someone who's important. Hercules doesn't feel important. He doesn't feel like he matters. And the love and attention that his parents give him just doesn't quite do it. I mean, because your parents are sort of obligated to like you, or at least love you, going by Downton Abbey. Still a great line. Larry, you're my son. I'll always love you, but I've never liked you. Great line. Great line. But when Hercules meets Zeus, finds out that's his father, and the only way to go live with him on Mount Olympus is to become a hero, and his godhood will be restored. It's a bit weird, but okay. Then Hercules goes to seek out Philoctetes, the trainer of heroes. And Phil comes in with his own personal baggage, too. He's wanted to train a great hero, and they've all sort of failed. They've all sort of, for one reason or another, they've come up short. My favorite one is with Achilles, that Flashluggana heel of his, and that's it. And he's sort of done with it until he sees that Hercules has the strength, and then a lightning bolt from Zeus, like, okay, we're training you. And through that, Hercules is supposed to grow. And this is another part where it sort of falls apart. If you go by the lessons Hercules learns in that montage, which is pretty much just to be a hero. Learn how to run, how to fight, how to fight with a sword, how to shoot arrows, and whatnot. That sells the idea that he's not ready. But then his interactions in the animated series, which at one point he even teams up with Aladdin, really fun story. And you just sort of wonder, okay, well, how does he not know? How does he not know? With everything happening there, how does he not know what it means to be a hero? So he sort of also suffers a bit more for the animated series. But let's sort of examine this on its own. So Hercules has spent a lot of time learning how to fight, how to punch, how to jab, how to, fire an arrow, how to fight a monster, but he doesn't quite know how to interact with people. He knows how to say the words. He knows how to be, quote unquote, a symbol. And when he goes to Thebes and he says, "You look to be in need of a hero, I happen to be a hero," and they laugh at him, it sort of helps sell the idea that in Thebes, they've sort of given up on the idea of heroes. It's a city of no hope. It's very much a pre-Superman world, what's the point of hoping, man can't fly without an airplane? And then you see Hercules come in, and Hercules gets what he wants, oddly enough. Once he fights the Hydra, which is a really great scene, he gets what he wanted. He's in a far-off place, which is Thebes. There's a great warm welcome waiting for him. The crowds are cheering. And I don't think there's not a voice saying this is where he's meant to be. He's not there yet. And this even hits home a bit more when after he's this huge hero, this huge celebrity with all these endorsements and an action figure, Zeus says, "You're not ready. You're not a hero yet." And it's frustrating for him. Because, to him, finding where he belongs, getting that extra amount, it's not there yet. And he needs it. He wants it. He wants to go where he belongs. And he's probably even hearing this is where he's meant to be, in the mortal world. But it's not what he sees. This is sort of a better version of the Ariel story, where the adventure, the destination is not as important as the adventure itself. And then he meets Megara again for the second time, and they talk. And it's a very intimate moment. He's very vulnerable and talks about, growing up, how he's afraid he's going to mess things up. And he sort of hears this, he senses the sorts of, hurts and sadness in Megara, and that's something he wants to protect. He wants to protect the good person that he sees inside Megara, the good person he believes Megara is. Megara doesn't believe that that's there, but again, he has an impact on it. That's sort of a hero job right there. We sort of view a hero as someone who punches monsters and slays dragons and whatnot, but it's the little things that really make a hero as well, having an impact on someone. And when he makes the deal with Hades to stay out of the way, to keep Megara safe, he feels generally hurt because he's seen Megara not live up to the standard he set, or the image he'd expected to be. So it's the hero image that is destroyed. He sort of viewed Megara as his hero. And then the Pain and Panic, who were really great little legacy minions. Legacy set forth by Lucifer in Cinderella. That sort of berate is another part of the tearing down. Hades physically tears Hercules down as a hero, and then Pain and Panic and Megara torment him. Well, Megara hurts him emotionally as a hero, and Pain and Panic torment him as children, as a hero as well. See, that all works. And then when he sees that there are still people in trouble, he resolves to try to do something. But at the same time, he doesn't quite feel it. He doesn't feel it in his heart that it matters, that anything matters. Then he sees Megara get hurt, and she probably should have died, as most people have pointed out when that pillar fell on her. That gives him his strength back. But it's not just that he has his strength back. It's not just that. It's that Megara's hurt, and he has to put a stop to this. And then he has to make the huge sacrifice, jumping into the Cavern of Souls, presumably, to save Megara. And the risk is what makes him a hero. The fact that he's willing to sacrifice his own life for Megara is what ultimately makes him a hero, because he knows he has to do it. Where you can argue that when fighting the Titans, he was just sort of going through the motions. And I think that was it. It was never genuine for Hercules when he saved people before. He knew he had to save people, but it was never a matter of it's the right thing to do or I have to do it because no one else will. He was doing it because it was the only way to be a hero. He was being a hero so he could be a hero, not because the people need to be saved. It's the sort of deconstruction of what makes a superhero, or a hero a superhero, or in Hercules' case, a god. And when he is offered the chance to come to Mount Olympus, again, he is now at a far-off place, the gate of Mount Olympus. There's a warm welcome for him. The crowds are cheering. But the thing is, there's no voice saying this is where he's meant to be. He sees Megara, and that's where he knows he's meant to be. He's meant to be not just with Megara, but down there, helping the mortals fight the monsters. That is the hero that is Hercules, totally ignoring the story of Heracles. But, that's just sort of how I viewed it. And, with that, we'll bring this video here to a close. If you are new here to Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Love to hear your thoughts on Hercules, Megara, Hades, Philoctetes, Zeus, the great joke from Hermes, not seen so much love in a room since Narcissus discovered himself. And I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing out. May your fandom serve you well.